the one thing that sets them apart from each other than just their physical differences, is the fact that the lifespan of one kite is equal to the lifespan of 10 or 15 grasshoppers combined. You might be thinking right now, why is this important? Why should I care about two random creatures? Well, as it turns out, the life trajectory of an average child versus a child who lives in a village in India are and will remain as different as the grasshopper and the kite. And this small lifespan of these children in rural India is partly as a result of a lack of education and basic resources. And given that India is a largely rural country, do we want it to transform into a country full of grasshoppers? Okay, that kind of sounds like a nightmare, but in reality, it's pretty much a nightmare as well. In the United States, about 20% of high school students either drop out or fail to complete it within 4 years. 20%. Yep, this is a pretty huge percent of the United States population. But in rural India, 70% of children don't even get to make it to high school. They don't even get to experience a secondary education. It's safe to say that rural India's issue is 50% worse than all of the United States. And this is partly because of the poor infrastructure of schools and the lack of quality of education, meaning sometimes schools have leaky pipes or broken walls, weak ceilings, and sometimes in rural India, there's a huge lack of teachers, or the curriculum is too little for a bunch of curious children to learn from. It can be quite difficult to completely understand what it's like to be underprivileged in India, but try and picture this situation as best as you can. You are 10 years old and you are scrounging the High Village landfill site for plastic or bottles or anything useful. The sun is perching high above your head. It's the middle of the day. Somebody walks by you and asks you what you are doing. You respond by saying, I go to school. Today is just a holiday. So not only have you just lied, but now you're sitting in this pile of dangerous solid waste. This is clearly no place for a child. When children don't go to school in villages in India, sometimes they end up spending their time on the side of the road or in a landfill site. And this needs to change because it's quite obvious that school has some seriously inspirational benefits. For the most part, we think of school as something that can, help us get a college education or a job in the future. But these children in rural India need school not just for this, but mainly because education can give children a sense of accomplishment, dignity, self-respect, confidence, and it can allow these children to make smarter and better decisions as they grow into adults. Education is the foundation for an individual's health and well-being. Research actually shows that if somebody is more educated, they're less likely to contract serious health issues in their future. According to a study, women in 32 countries who were educated were 3 times less likely to get the HIV infection. Similarly, with the infant mortality rate, every year that a woman went to school, the infant mortality rate of their child will reduce by 9% every year. And this is all because every year that people go to school, They gain more knowledge and confidence, and they carry that with them for the rest of their life. Girls and women, and basically everyone who goes to school, is able to gain something that isn't something that you can gain on a daily basis. School is special, which is why every child needs to have this experience. In the summer of 1991, a couple of college students realized that this lack of education needed to be ended. Something must be done. And thus, Asha for Education was born. Asha for Education is a nonprofit organization that the main mission is to provide education to underprivileged children in India. Asha means hope in many Indian dialects, and it was named after the hope that brought these students together and the hope that they were going to bring the lives of as many children as possible. Asha for Education is achieving their mission because they have over 50 chapters all over the world, including one right here in Princeton. And now they have over 1,000 active volunteers. Some of the main projects, the main thing that is getting achieved is that more primary schools are becoming opened, the quality of teaching and the quality of learning is increasing by a huge amount. Not only are more schools being created, but construction, meal kitchens, and overall life of being at a school, the quality is increasing greatly. And children are being able to go to school with a good roof, a strong roof above their head, and a school with walls, which is a huge accomplishment. And now children are being able to learn from strong teachers who know what they're teaching with a good curriculum. The 5 main goals of Asha for Education are to motivate children and give them basic resources, ensure that children can go to school away from their cramped and noisy homes, allow children to have interaction or access to talking with professionals, make sure that children know that their future holds a lot of new opportunities for them. And most importantly, Asha for Education is spreading awareness about this lack of education and these severe developmental issues in rural India to inspire volunteers to become a part of this social cause. The future holds many, many more challenges, and the mission of making education universal is far from complete. But right now, we are living pretty comfortably. But there are so many things that you can do, even right from the United States in your own house, that can impact a child who lives on another continent, 10,000 miles away. The 3 main things you can do to help a child and bring a smile on someone's face is you can become a volunteer for Asha for Education. Anybody is allowed and there are no age requirements. Next, you could simply attend charitable events. Not only is this a form of donation, but it's a pretty fun event as well. And last but not least, you could donate to the Asha for Education Princeton chapter website. Even one donation can go a long way. You might be sitting here right now thinking that you can't make a difference because you're just one person. That's too small, or your voice is too small. But that's completely incorrect. Even you, from right now, even from your couch, you could impact a child and you could make a change on the global level. We all want to say that in our lives, we impacted other people and we made a change. We did something that is important. But this is your chance to make your mark. After all, every small donation you place leads to a child smiling and maybe smiling after a long time of not, and on you creating another success story. At the end of the day, if all of us put our best foot forward and we all supported fixing this lack of education and changing rural India, we will be able to transform India from, instead of being a country full of grasshoppers or uneducated children, we can make India a country full of strong, intelligent, and capable kites. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi. Our next speaker is Nish Chutaria, and his topic is Deep Waters of Addiction.
The terrorist threat families in America see is not in the streets of Aleppo. It's the fentanyl coming down your very own street. This idea was expressed by our very own Senator Ed Markey. We have been blinded by the constant dilemmas that have been showing up, but haven't been focusing on the small things that are picking people off one by one. The news broadcasts a small crime in the nearest city, but doesn't shed light to a larger and more important topic like opioids, which kills an average of 150 people per day. To put into perspective, the number of people that have died due to overdose or opioid abuse is as if you took the population of Plainsboro, the population of West Windsor, combined them, but multiplied it by 5. Opioids have taken the world by storm and causing rising death rates due to their constant abuse. Abuse has been a problem in this world for such a long time and is still going to continue growing. Opioids are meant to produce morphine-like effects. Medically speaking, they're used for pain relief like anesthesia. As many 16-year-olds do, Devin, like any, was getting his wisdom teeth removed for the first time. As we know, getting any tooth removed hurts a lot, so he's prescribed 30 days worth of prescription opioids. On his first day, he took his first 2 pills. And when he had them, he felt like he was unstoppable, on top of the world, and the pain was completely gone. Opioids are completely harmless, so he thought. In 3 days, he finished the entire bottle. This stuck with him, of course, throughout high school and, of course, college. He was opened up to illegal drugs like heroin. One day, he woke up extremely tired. He looked to his left. His mother was holding his hand with a sorrowful look on her face. He looked to the right and saw a drug counselor talking to a doctor. He looked back up at the ceiling, closed his eyes as tears rolled down his cheeks, and he realized his fatal mistake. There are 23 different types of opioids, going from prescription opioids like OxyContin, all the way to illegal drugs like heroin. Opioids are a class of drugs that are naturally found in the opium poppy plant that work with the brain to produce a variety of effects, like, for example, pain relief. Opioids are also used for moderate to severe pain. In addition to this, they give a variety of effects, like making the user feel relaxed, happy, or high, and can be extremely addictive. Signs and symptoms are so important to watch, but why are we even letting it get there in the first place? We can stop anybody from overdosing from the beginning. Opioids are meant to relieve pain, But not everyone has physical pain. So many people are going through emotional pain and trauma. There are people with mental illnesses are twice as likely to utilize opioids than people without them. They're also 3 times more likely to misuse these opioids. I mean, I'm a teenager. I'm a rising junior and about to apply to college. And many of your children will have to eventually too. What a certain school that we all want to go to, a certain school that we've been aspiring to go to for such a long time, we deem that our dream school. But what really happens when we apply for those schools? We work hard, we bear the stress, and we study all night. Truly, most of us don't even get in. Past studies have shown that many people who don't get into their top colleges or any college at all eventually lead to bigger problems like mental illnesses, like anxiety or depression. Those people believe that their effort and hard work was completely useless and it didn't pay off. And it's not just with education. Other life-changing events like losing a family member or maybe even losing a job. These life-altering events could become a gateway for drugs like opioids and heroin. Everyone that's gone through this might believe that the only way to stop it is through pain relief, like pain relief drugs like opioids. When you go through surgery, anesthesia is given. When your tooth gets pulled out, you're given prescription opioids. And one of the most painful processes is pregnancy. More and more women are misusing opioids during pregnancy due to the unbearable pain. Because of this, their children, their unborn babies, eventually get addicted and have withdrawal symptoms, which is called neonatal abstinence syndrome. Some symptoms are fever, irritability, tremors, seizures, difficulty feeding, and it can get to the point of where the baby can't breathe anymore. I mean, look where we've come with this. Now it's not just adults that are getting addicted, but unborn babies. Opioids will always be there to affect so many of us. But now during these already tough times, people with addiction have been suffering tenfold. Due to the unfortunate conditions that are COVID-19, many services, treatments, and clinics have been completely shut down. Peter Grinspoon, a doctor that works with overdose patients and opioid abuse, says people are told to stay home, which directly contradicts the need to go to clinics and obtain methadone or other medications for treating their addiction. Our government, in response, has relaxed regulations so that in theory, clinics can give 14-day or 28-day supplies to their stable patients so that they can adhere to social distancing and safety. Unfortunately, there are countless stories of patients not being granted this privilege, including at least one of his own patients. With this in mind, people are already suffering, and people that are abusing opioids are suffering twice the amount. I have personally got in contact with a very strong and influential nonprofit organization called Allied for Opioid Abuse. Their motto is, Allied Against Opioid Abuse is a national education and awareness initiative to help prevent abuse and misuse of prescription opioids. Our goal is to contribute to the solving of the opioid crisis in a meaningful way by serving as a centralized information resource, providing education, and creating awareness. This organization gets money and spreads the word through fundraisers as well as donations. Their money goes both to clinics and people that are in immediate needing care. Alongside this nonprofit, I want to be able to make a difference. I want to join the fight. So I'm not just going to explain this to you adults, but I want to explain it to my generation and the generation underneath me so that they don't even think about going down that route. I've gone through elementary school, middle school, and I'm almost done with high school. And I've sat through many programs and lectures, and I've realized that most of my peers don't even care about what they're saying or have taken to heart. And that's why I feel the best way to approach them is with another teenager, someone that understands them, like myself. After ensuring that everyone is not going to abuse opioids, we can throw down a rope and pull everyone up that has dug themselves in such a deep hole that is addiction. As time goes on, technology grows and new products emerge. I want to be able to take advantage of this and create something new. I'm in the process of building an app which has the ability to tell if the patient is about to overdose or not. It will utilize the patient's heartbeat patterns and breathing patterns to figure this out. In addition, with this app, there's a calendar function, which the user has the ability to input his timings and dates of when he needs to take the prescription opioid. But the real calculator is a device that is handed to you when you're getting your prescription opioids. This device is placed on your chest, and it's so small, you won't even notice that it's there. As soon as the device feels like the user is wavering, it will immediately call the police. Keeping everything in mind, we see how dangerous opioids are, from OxyContin to illegal drugs like heroin. We see how COVID-19 has taken such a big effect and toll on opioid abusers. Their immune systems have drastically weakened and are now more susceptible to the virus. Many may say to donate, and that's the best way to help, but truly, the best way to help is just spread the word. We've all been stuck in quarantine for such a long time, and I know most of us have been sitting on our bed scrolling through TikTok hours on end, or even at some points posting memes or fake news on our WhatsApp family's group chats. But why not make a difference in the world? Why not take that time and post on your Instagram story, make a TikTok video, or on that same WhatsApp family chat, post something about the safety precautions you should take when taking prescription opioids, and you too can join the fight. If you want to learn more about this topic, the easiest way is to go to the Allied Against Opioid Abuse website. It'll tell you everything you need to know. The worst thing is to watch someone drown and not being able to tell them that they can save themselves by just standing up. Together, we can save everyone who has been drowning in the deep waters of addiction. Thank you.
Questions?
Does Dr. have any questions?
Dr. Nabi, questions, please.
Yeah, I forgot to ask
Yeah,
question to the first presenter.
Yeah, we'll call Nidhi again. I'll call her again.
Is she available?
Yes.
Okay. It was excellent presentation, clear on the issues, especially underprivileged children in India. And my question was to her is how the volunteer can help in that project.
So since the projects since they obviously take place in the villages in India, so from right here, you could just donate to the Princeton chapter websites, or you could attend the charity events, because all the money would go towards a few people who would end up going to India to doing the actions like building the schools and cleaning up the areas.
Thank you. Your presentation was excellent, and there was clarity in the program you explained. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next question to the second presenter, this drug problem, opioid problem. And it was also excellent presentation. You have studied the issues. I think it was also clear presentation. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience? You can post them in the Q&A section. While we're waiting, I would like to introduce our special guest today, Honorable Senator Linda Greenstein. She is right there. Would you like to say a couple words before we begin?
Yes, I'll just say hello to everybody. I'm just joining, so I haven't heard any presentations yet, but I want to say hello to your honorable leader here, and I know what a wonderful program this is, and all of you learn so much. So I'm here to hear what you have to say, and I'll ask any questions as you go along, but thank you very much for having me.
Oh,
Hi,
thank you.
Linda, how are you?
And hi, Councilman Nabi, how are you?
Thank you. I'm fine.
Good. Nice.
Before we begin, I would like to give a brief bio of Senator Greenstein. She is a politician who represents the 14th legislative district in the New Jersey Senate. She's had years of professional experience, including being a specialist in disability law, the staff attorney for a community health law project, and the assistant district attorney for the city of Philadelphia. In 2014, she received the Barbara Boggs Sigmund Award, which is presented to a Democratic woman who has been successful in her career and who is a leader promoting policies in support of women and families. This award is presented to those who have made continuous efforts to advance the careers and opportunities for women. Senator Greenstein has spent her entire career to support and improve the lives of all people in this nation. And we as New Jerseyans and we as Americans are honored for her to be representing us and our values. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Now,
It's a great honor that you are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my honor. Thank
Was for Senator and Dr. Nabi. Just go around.
now I would like to introduce our third speaker, Sanjana Kulkarni, and her speech topic is Candy, the clue to cure MNT.
So we all know the significance of October 31st, or Halloween. It's the day where we stuff our faces with candy, meet up with friends, dress up as our favorite characters, and just have an overall good time. In the United States alone, 41.1 million children aged 5 through 14 go trick-or-treating every year. In 2018, an American survey showed that each American household spent approximately $86.79 on the holiday. This includes candy, decorations, children's costumes, and so on. That means in total, America annually spends approximately $73.6 million on Halloween. So what do these numbers mean, and why are they so significant? Maternal and neonatal tetanus is one of the deadliest diseases for newborn babies and new mothers. This disease is caused when tetanus spores found in the soil all around infect cuts or wounds received during childbirth. MNT affects the poorest of the poor, those in geographically hard to reach locations, those without proper medical attention, those without proper health care, and those who don't have proper resources such as food, water, or shelter. In a recent survey, it was shown that the disease affected 800,000 babies as of today. That is 1/10 of the population of the state of New Jersey. UNICEF is a nonprofit organization that stands for the United Nations Children's Fund as a United Nations agency. This agency is responsible for meeting the humanitarian and developmental needs of children and mothers all over the globe. UNICEF was founded on December 11th, 1964, and since its founding in 1967, and since its fundraising since 1967, it has raised $8.2 billion and is still going strong. As we all know, UNICEF is a nonprofit organization, and they hold many different fundraisers. One of their most profitable and fun fundraisers is the UNICEF Trick or Treat for MNT. This fundraiser originally started 69 years ago in order to help children recover from the horrors of World War II. Children would go door to door and yell, "Trick or treat for UNICEF," and raise money to send to children and mothers who are still suffering all over the globe. Although these numbers are brilliant, $8.2 billion, that's still not enough. We need to face the harsh reality. I want you to imagine this scenario. You are a mother and you're giving birth in Yemen. You're 9 months pregnant, and when you go into labor, you don't have proper shelter. You've not eaten in days, and you've not drank clean water in months. You end up going in labor on the ground, in the dirt. And when you finally deliver your baby, you can tell something is immediately wrong. Your baby dies within 20 minutes, and you haven't even had the chance to hold it. This story, unfortunately, is not a rare one. Every 17 minutes, a newborn child dies from maternal neonatal tetanus. Neonatal tetanus causes the child to die because it causes extreme sensitivity to light, touch, and sound, which even stops the mother from holding the child. Now, in order to solve this crisis, UNICEF partnered with the Kiwanis family, one of its biggest partnerships, in 2010 and started the Eliminate Project. From July 30th, 2019, they have raised $10.2 million. They have completely eradicated MNT in 26 different countries and have prevented 24,000 babies from receiving this virus. That is the population of West Windsor and Plainsboro combined. They've also given many mothers the vaccination to repress the spread of this disease. However, the fight does not stop there. MNT is still going strong in 13 geographically hard to reach countries. These include countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Somalia, Central African Republic, Sudan, South Sudan, and many others. So what can you do to help? Remember those numbers I went over earlier? The 41.1 million children that go trick-or-treating each year, and the $86.79 each American household spends. What about the $3.56 billion America spends annually? Let's just think for a moment that instead of spending $86.79, each household spends $85, and that extra $1.79 goes towards trick-or-treat for UNICEF. Now, if each of the 41.1 million children donated the $1.79 towards trick-or-treat for UNICEF, that is $73.6 million. And if we factor in the cost of a tetanus shot, which is $15 per se, that is 4 million children and mothers you could have vaccinated with only $1.79 from each person. 4 million mothers and children. That is 4 times the population of Rhode Island, one of our states. So you might be thinking, oh, this girl just comes in front of us today to just speak about this. What does she know? Well, that's where you're wrong. Our school actually held this fundraiser, and I raised $50 for this. And someone wrote back to me and they told me that I helped 2 children receive clean water for 1 week, and I helped 10 children receive blankets for the harsh winters. Now that joy in my heart, that made everything worth it. I went to neighbors, friends, families, local businesses, and I got those $50. And that joy that I felt when I realized I had helped 3 children live, 3 children survive, that made me feel really good. Now, here's where it's your choice. Are you going to take that $1.79 from your candy Halloween decorations and costumes and put it towards Trick or Treat for UNICEF? Or is that $1.79 so worth it to you that you must have it instead of saving a child's life? Thank you.
Fantastic job. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Well, first comments on the presentation. It was excellent presentation. Body language was very impressive, and points you made was very clear. And it's a noble cause, this helping these newborn children. And I congratulate you for your raising $50. It's help a few people. So if everybody have does it, then we can help a lot of people. So excellent presentation. Thank you.
I'd like to say something. I was also extremely impressed with the presentation. One thing I wondered about, do the young people, I've only just seen one at this point, do they use notes at all, or is that completely just done on their own?
No, they never use notes. Right from the beginning, we trained them not to use paper while speaking. That's the first mantra of Inspire Academy. So they never use paper at all.
Well, I wish I had taken your course. It's very, very, very impressive to see how they're able to go through in such an organized way and express themselves. And, it's just very good. And it will do you good in any field that you go into later on to be able to communicate this way. So wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Sanjay, do you have any other questions?
Does the audience have any questions?
If you have questions, you can post it on your chat and we'll be able to answer it.
In the Q&A section.
In the Q&A, you can just post your questions for the speaker. So when you're listening to the speaker, if you have any questions, any way you want to confirm certain things, just go ahead. I don't think right now we don't have any more questions. I think we can move on.
Okay. Our next speaker is Sachi Kurian, and her speech is Mind Our Health.
Humans are the dominant species on Earth today. We are at the top of the food chain. Just like the dinosaurs during the Mesozoic era, we are the head honchos and we practically run the show. But when you think about this, it's kind of ironic and pretty funny because compared to the dinosaurs, we are considerably smaller, weaker, and so much more feeble. Okay, but forget about the dinosaurs. Let's compare ourselves to animals that we live amongst today. We can't even begin to compare to their physical properties. For example, we aren't as strong as bears or as fast as cheetahs or venomous like snakes. And what makes our status, our very high status on the food chain, even more ironic is the fact that we are susceptible to such a wide variety of dangers and threats. Viruses, for example, have the potential to completely wipe out the human race. Take right now, we are in the midst of a global pandemic, which has the complete potential to obliterate the human race. But what is it then that has kept us surviving and prospering for so long? What is it, if not the physical properties that we obviously don't have, that has kept us thriving through multiple pandemics, the bubonic plague, measles outbreak, the COVID-19? The answer to this is our brains. Our very developed, highly complex, and extremely intelligent brains. However, what people don't realize is that just as our bodies are susceptible to such a wide variety of illnesses, our brains are as well. What people don't talk about is that vulnerability that our brains and minds really do have. What people don't talk about is the severity and sheer detrimentality of mental illness and mental disorders. And what people don't talk about is how to address this problem and its extremely high rising level of severity. Teenagers today are more stressed than ever before. Depression and anxiety are things that are taking over our lives completely. They are so horrible that they can make someone physically and mentally incapable of just getting up out of bed in the morning to start their day. They can make someone severely anxious and so afraid to just go outside and be in what others might think is just a normal social situation. They can lead someone to come to the conclusion that ending their own life is a better alternative to facing the pain that they are dealing with. And this is not only teenagers and high schoolers that we're talking about. It's middle schoolers, it's elementary school kids whose lives have barely just begun, who feel the need to end it instead of dealing with the pain that they are in. Depression is something that affects more than 20% of teenagers today. And only about 30% of us, or 30% of them, are getting the treatment, therapy, medications, and help that they so need. In addition to this, veterans. Let's look at another population group. Veterans are the ones who risked their lives, who gave up everything for us, for our country, for our freedom, for our peace. More than 30% of them suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And do you know what that means for them? It means severe anxiety, panic attacks, sleepless nights, flashbacks, continually reliving the experiences that they went through in the war. Middle-aged women, another population group, have the highest levels of depression than any other cross-section between age and gender. Women in between the ages of 40 to 59 have the highest rates of depression. And since the 1990s, suicide rates have been at an all-time high. They have been increasing dramatically. And we know that one of the major contributing factors to suicide and to people ending their own lives is depression. That is one of the main reasons that people choose to do so. We have this fact, yet we're not doing anything to address the severity of mental health disorders and mental illness in our nation. We have this fact, but we aren't being active against the problem of mental illness in the country. And what's unfortunate about mental illnesses is that what I have just talked about with depression and anxiety does not even begin to cover the wide plethora of illnesses that fall under this term. Some people suffer from psychotic disorders, which are characterized by a state of psychosis. That literally means a disconnect or loss from external reality. These people have severe hallucinations and delusions. Imagine hearing voices and seeing people just to have someone tell you that none of that is real, just to have someone tell you that it is all fiction. These people are incapable of distinguishing between reality and what is not true. Mental illness is something that is affecting 1 in 5 Americans. 1 in 5 Americans, which is more than 9 people in this room right now, are suffering, have suffered, or will suffer from a mental health disease. Now, I want to take you back to my middle school experience, and I'm sure that many of you can relate to this as well. In middle school, we learned about a lot of different sensitive subjects, a lot of different topics that some people might think require a very deep level of understanding and a high level of maturity. We learned about drugs, alcohol, reproduction. In science classes, we learned about cancers, heart disease, stroke, seizures. These are not easy things to learn about, but we were taught them anyway. And what's the reason for that? Because the education systems believe that it is important that the youth is educated on the things that they are so susceptible to having in the future. We learned about how drugs and alcohol can take a turn on your life, how different kinds of drugs can ruin your life forever. However, not once do I recall at all being taught about the importance of mental health and the different mental illnesses. But following the logic that we should be taught about the very dangers we're susceptible to, shouldn't we be taught about mental illness? Shouldn't I have been taught in middle school about the different illnesses that have a very high chance of barging in and completely taking over my life? Doesn't the American youth deserve that education? Now, we claim to live in a very progressive society. We claim to be very accepting people, very open people, diverse people that are ready to talk about and discuss issues that are very prevalent in our society today. You would think that these progressive people in this very progressive society are very aware about mental illnesses and the problem that it is in our nation, and are very active against this issue and are trying to solve it and help prevent it amongst future generations. However, this is not true at all. These same people in this same progressive society are the ones saying, oh, mental illness isn't real, it's just in their heads. And do you know what I say to that? I say, yes, you're right. It is a very real thing inside of their heads, a very literal disorder taking over their brains. Just as cancer or tumors take over an organ in your body, mental illness is that same tumor, that same metaphorical tumor, taking over your brain, changing the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you act, completely altering your perception of reality. This is the caliber and severity of mental illness. Education and awareness are key here. We can't solve a problem that some people refuse to acknowledge. We can't begin to address a problem that no one is aware about. Simply Neuroscience is an organization that is devoted to doing just this. We are an organization that promotes the pursuit of knowledge in fields such as neuroscience, psychology, and mental health. And there are many such organizations all around the world. However, our effect is only so big. We're really only reaching out to high schoolers who are interested and who are aware about the problem of mental illness. What we need to happen is politicians, people with authority, people with power, people with the pedestal and the ability to have their voices reach millions, talk about this issue and address it. What we also need is an implementation of changes. In the American school system, for example, if we're mandated to learn about drugs and alcohol, we should also be required to learn about mental health and mental illnesses. We should be required to take courses in the very diseases that have such a high chance of ruining our lives. Now, one of the reasons why the issue of mental illness is so prevalent in our country and why suicide rates and all these levels are so high is because mental health care is extremely inaccessible. This is because of high costs, very insufficient insurance coverages. This is because of limited options and long wait times. And mainly this is because of social stigma. More than 31% of Americans believe that if they receive mental health care and someone comes to know about their treatment or what they are receiving, they feel that they will be severely judged and looked down upon. What century are we living in for people to have to feel this way? What century are we living in which the facts are provided for us in the palms of our hands? We see the statistics, we have the science showing us that mental illness has gotten so much worse in the 21st century. What century are we living in to just disacknowledge all of those facts and continue to let the problem of mental illness slip under our noses? We are the dominant species on Earth today. We run the show. However, we won't be in the next few centuries if we continue to let this problem slide. We won't be here in the next few centuries if we aren't addressing the topic of mental illness, because it will be the next pandemic unless we do something about it. Thank you.
Again, this was also a good presentation, excellent presentation. Your point was very clear. I have a question.
Mhm.
During this lockdown, Is there any statistics of this mental illness or depression? Is there any data you are aware of?
There's a lot of studies and research that I have read. I don't really have a clear statistic in my head right now, but so many people don't have access to the care they need. Just a small percentage of people who are able to receive treatment and care can't get any of that. And because of that, depression levels, even suicide rates during this pandemic have gone high dramatically.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought an excellent presentation. You know, you're right that money is often a problem, and insurance coverage. We've had many, in the 20 years that I've been in the state legislature, we've had many bills about having coverage for mental health to make it equal to coverage for physical health problems, and it never quite seems to go through. And no matter what topic you're talking about, it seems that mental health gets short shrift. For example, now we're all talking about police reform, and there are issues about should police officers have to deal with mentally ill people. You know, they're called on all sorts of things, and they get calls when a mentally ill person is acting out. And, you know, really they are the all responders, because it would be very difficult, I think, for other responders to come in and deal with people who are committing crimes while they're mentally ill, or at least committing violence, I should say, while they're mentally ill. So it's definitely an important topic. In fact, I spent 10 years of my career as a lawyer for an agency where I represented mentally ill people. And you're right, it definitely gets the short end of the stick, and we need to devote a lot more of our resources to it and pay a lot more attention to it. So I'm glad that your presentation highlighted that. Did a very good job, very articulate. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Does the audience have any questions before we move on?
You can post your questions in the Q&A if you have any questions. No? I think we can move on.
I'm selfish. I really am. And you're selfish too, councilman and senator. In fact, I know that everyone here on this call is selfish. Because frankly, America is selfish. Let's not sugarcoat things here with a statistic or any other list of impactful words. Let's state the matter of things. Let's announce the status quo. The news, social media, all of it has recently shown us that everyone in this country works to maximize their own situation. Not everyone looks at those who didn't start off with the same stepping stones that they had. And us as a community need to make strides in order to make these opportunities equal across the board for everyone. But let's take a step back here. Let's look at this from a global standpoint. Some communities around the world don't even have the opportunities in the first place to make them equal for everyone. Some communities have to work so hard for these opportunities that they're running for these opportunities. And what do we do to feel better about ourselves? What do we do so that we feel more cultured and we feel like we really are good people? Hey, can I be $5,000 so I can go to some small town in Africa? Maybe take some pictures. I'll post it on my Instagram, and maybe then I'll feel like a good person. Maybe then other people will think I'm a cool person. That'll make me look good, right? But it's all just another example of how we take how much we have for granted. We have access to free education, food, water, electricity. And even if we may not be able to afford these things, our government has safety nets in place for us. Food stamps, government housing, reduced school lunch prices, the list goes on. Democracy itself is a gift for us. But I'll admit it, 2 years ago, I was looking for these online programs. I really didn't have any goal in mind or anything I wanted to do. I kind of just wanted to go, and I fell for all these traps that I just mentioned. So I did end up participating in Global Leadership Adventures Children of Africa program to Krobo, Ghana. And I was there to tutor kids and build classrooms for 2 weeks. But even after I got there, after I landed in the capital, Accra, after I took the bus ride to Krobo, after I played with the kids at the park, something bothered me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was having the best time of my life. I had never traveled alone like that before or met that many new people in a new country. I was loving it, and I even met one of the closest friends I have today there. He was around my age. His name was Patrick. He's 16, and we still talk on the phone. We played at the park almost every day, and you know what? He's probably the best soccer player I've ever seen. You know, all the varsity soccer players here that buy $300 cleats, he would sauce them all barefoot. I mean, they don't have anything on him. But I still remember what he said to me as I left. Kartik, when we're all grown up, when I'm grown up, I'm gonna move to America just like you. I'm gonna leave Krobo. He was my age, dreaming about leaving his own country. He didn't want to stay, he didn't want to explore, he didn't want to build a future in his own community. And what I was starting to take away from the trip was that I was gaining more than I was giving. I was benefiting more from this new experience than the kids I was tutoring or the kids that I was playing with. So I wanted to get this message out to more teens my age. Now, as an ambassador for Global Leadership Adventures, I encourage teens from all over the world to participate in these service trips. To travel to Thailand and provide elephants with fresh water. To travel to the DR and support rural communities in their development. But most of all, most importantly, is to push these teens into setting themselves up and putting themselves in the shoes of these communities. We would never want any foreigners to barge into our community and have their own vision or their own egos because they feel like they're so much better off and they need to help. See, the more that happens, the more that foreigners barge in, the more Patricks there are. The more children want to leave their own communities. The development that these communities need is not housing projects and it's not healthcare innovations. It's education. See, education has the power to allow these children to build their own future in their communities, to build their own homes, to build their own healthcare systems. What we should never do is build these things for another community and limit that community's actions, that community's experiences, that community's innovations. And when you offer education, all of that blooms on its own. I've embraced the fact that in most cases, the volunteers are going to learn and take away much more than anyone or anything that they help. But these teen travel programs and these service trips, they're not the end goal. They're not a way to say, oh, I've done my job, I'm a good person now, I'm cool, I'm done. They're just the beginning. They're the beginning for every teen to experience a situation they never had before. They're the beginning for every teen, and every person for that matter, to realize that they can make a change individually. What they do with that information once they're back in their first world comfortable residencies, I have no idea. But what I do know is that with new learnings and new experiences come the power to do more. The power to stop worrying about how limited your power is. See, as an American high school student, especially for medicine, everything you do from high school is so worried about how you can boost your college resume, how you can get into the best college. But what we really want to do in life. And I'm not really going to get into a conversation about the meaning of life here, because for everyone, I guess that is different. But at the baseline, everyone wants to make a change. No matter what the impact is, no matter how small it is, no matter how many people it affects, everyone wants to make a change. So why should we spend the first 18 years of our life focusing on getting the best education, focusing on getting the best grade? Why do we not start the trial and error from our education and put it into action? Why are we not attempting new things and failing miserably? We can start that now. We're not limited to after we get into college or after we graduate or after we retire. And when I came back from Provo, I thought about my power as well. At the end of the day, the 2 weeks of time I spent there, they could only do so much. And last month, when I was quarantined, I realized how privileged I was. I realized how privileged to have everything I needed, all the resources I need, without fear of disease. Not everyone has that same luxury. And when my friend told me that he had to miss out on his service trip to Guatemala, I knew that that was our chance. That was our chance to make a difference and see the change that I wanted to see in my community by setting an example. And that was the change I wanted to see. It limited how I could fundraise. The quarantine limited how I could raise awareness, but what it could never do was stop us. As a 3-season cross-country and track athlete, I love to run. People will make fun of me for it. People will say track is not a sport. People will ask me how I love to run. But you know what? I'll take all the trash talking that comes with it because I love to run. But I knew that if I was able to bring my two passions together, I was sure to be successful in whatever I was going for. And that's when we founded Run for Opportunity. Through Run for Opportunity and through running, it encourages committing to funding educational nonprofits in underdeveloped countries. And that was our project. In our event from June 7th to June 9th, we were excited to bring in over 60 runners and $3,300 in donations to education systems in Guatemala through an organization called From Houses to Homes. But the next step from here was to raise funds for supplies in school systems in Provo. So Patrick doesn't have to worry about leaving his own country. So Patrick can build his own future in his own community. And we can already imagine the success of a real 5K because this one was virtual. We have so much room to grow. So as we're all sitting here watching these speeches, everyone's talking about something different. Everyone might be here just to watch their kids or to support this organization. But we all can take away something from this and make a change. So ask yourself, am I selfish or should I take action? Forget your age, your color, your social status, all of it, and use your privilege for something good. Stop being complacent and give a little bit of thought to the communities without the same education systems. Push yourself like you never have before, like it's a race. So run for opportunity. Thank you.
Fantastic speech. Are there any questions or comments?
Linda?
Yeah, it was an excellent job also. Everybody is very good. It's funny what I'm noticing, and everybody has a completely different style. The two young ladies who spoke use their hands more. So maybe they do that more than the guys do, but it may also be an individual thing. Either way, it's just another form of expression. And I was definitely, the topics are just so interesting and so different. It's just interesting to see from the beginning to the end of the speech how how they get to the points that they want to make. So very good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was also a good job, and it sounds like a motivational speaker. So I think that's a good point, and I hope you will do fine in your future. It was a good presentation and good topics.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Feel free to post any questions in the Q&A area.
I don't think we have any.
Okay, moving on. Our next speaker is Arman Ahmed, and his speech is called Snatched Memories.
When was the last time you pet a dog or a cat? Had your favorite food? Talk to a family member. Our memory gives us the capacity to learn, build relationships, and recreate happiness. Sadly, not everyone has that luxury. Imagine you walk into a room and forget why you're there. Almost comical, right? Now imagine this is your life every single day. Alzheimer's disease is a disease characterized by massive neural cell death and all the associated side effects, most notably dementia. Dementia is a continuous decline in social skills, behavior, and even thought itself. Intelligence and consciousness are core characteristics of humans. When someone says humanity, those should be the two characteristics that any human should have: to be physically, mentally, and morally present, to be able to build from your mistakes and become a better version of yourself. Alzheimer's can take that away from you. Worse, it can make you regress. You can forget how to walk, how to talk. It becomes extremely difficult to build relationships or rebuild relationships when you don't know the difference between your mother, your wife, and your sister, only that it's a face that you should know. For such a pervasive, debilitating disease, you would have thought a cure had been developed with great haste. Sadly, this is not the case, despite the fact that Alzheimer's will become a worse problem than ever before. In 2020, 2% of Medicare's budget went towards Alzheimer's patients. In 2040, 25%, or 1/4 of Medicare's budget will go towards Alzheimer's patients. That is a 12.5 times increase. Now, this may feel rather abstract to some. So imagine a family member who has this condition. They don't know your name. When you come to see them, they ask why you were there. I actually have a classmate who has a relative with Alzheimer's, late stage. And it can be very difficult to even come to see them because they ask who you are. So why isn't there a cure for Alzheimer's? It's because we haven't lived long enough. With a long life comes the freedom to make choices, be happy, enjoy your retirement. But it also comes with a plethora of other diseases and conditions and disorders, including cancer. Alzheimer's is like that. Unfortunately, it can also affect young people in a form called early onset Alzheimer's. This means that besides two proteins, amyloid and tau, there are very few things for researchers to go off of right now for a cure. You may be feeling hopeless, like you can't help, but anyone can help. And if you're wondering how, donate your time, money, and expertise to the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. The AFA's mission statement is to provide support, care, and services to patients, caretakers, and their families, as well as to fund research into treatment and a cure. So why is this important? You could be giving them their lives back by some perspectives. They would no longer be frozen in time or regressing. It's like someone hit the play button on their lives. This is very serious and very helpful stuff. And when someone also considers the time period that we're living through right now, the COVID-19 pandemic, it can become especially essential to donate and help out this cause. There was a case when an elderly lady wearing insufficient clothing walked out into a freezing winter night. She said later that she lost control over her body. She appeared on a neighbor's doorstep, and she had just enough mental clarity to show them a card explaining the situation and her name before wandering off. Thankfully, that neighbor called the police and resolved the situation. The woman was later diagnosed with Alzheimer's. But now, some people may not even come to the door, much less invest time into helping this person. She could have died out there. It can become especially difficult for Alzheimer's patients if they forget there's COVID-19. This may seem unrealistic or a niche kind of possibility, but it is very real. If Alzheimer's patients get infected, those people who are giving them care, support that they need, may find it very difficult to do so for fear of infection. If these caretakers and families even cannot care for Alzheimer's patients, their condition could quickly deteriorate. These people need help. And they aren't just an abstract people. 28 million people will have Alzheimer's in 2040. One of those people could be someone in the audience right now. If you don't want to help because of perhaps you feel disconnected from this cause, remember that this could be you. You could forget your name, family, and other essential things. And also think about the consequence for forgetting in different situations. If I were to forget what I was going to say, people would be disappointed, my parents would be angry, but the consequences, they would come and they would pass. If an Alzheimer's patient were to forget to pay their mortgage, they could be, or their rent for that matter, they could be kicked out. And that is happening to some people now. There is so much struggle that the Alzheimer's community is going through right now. And they really need help. The next time that you have a happy memory, anything that you'd like to remember, think about how much you would like to remember it. Think about your loved ones, those that you would not like to forget, and take just a fraction of that, just a fraction, and put it towards the AFA. Help these people, because one day could be you, it could be your children, it could be their generation. So please prevent that from happening. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the judges?
The presentation was excellent. You made articulate very well about the plight of the patients, but how about the medical treatment? Is there any development in treating these patients?
Well, as I said before, the two most common proteins found in all of these patients are the amyloid and tau proteins. So I believe that they are looking into that as a form of treatment.
Thank you.
Very good job. Very interesting topic. And, I learned a couple of things listening to you. Thank you.
Since there are no questions from the audience, we are going to move on to our next speaker, Vaishnavi Dudakuri, and her speech title is "Humans Are Not the Only Species on Earth."
Imagine that you have no water, no food, you're starving, and you can't get anything for yourself. You're badly hurt and you can't get treated for it. Imagine that you have a pet. It's happy, healthy, and living its best life. But as your pet is happy in your home, there's another pet suffering at the hands of their owner. Animal abuse or animal cruelty involves inflicting harm, injuring, or killing an animal. The cruelty can be intentional, such as kicking, burning, stabbing, beating, and in some cases, shooting. There was a horrible incident, including a female dog named Star, who made international headlines in 2011. Animal rescue officers were investigating a separate case when they heard her whimpering, calling for help, as she was shot in the head 40 times with a pellet gun. There are people who get traumatized by getting shot once, but this poor dog got shot 40 times in the head with a pellet gun. A pellet gun is not the same as a normal gun, but they still cause approximately 4 deaths per year. And not only did she get shot 40 times, she was buried alive with her legs tied together. The animal rescue officers found her underneath a wooden board with a tree stump on top to weigh it down. She was found buried alive and bleeding, with her nose and mouth tied together with a rope, and bullet wounds on her head. Police rushed her to a hospital where she miraculously survived, despite doctors having to remove 40 pellet gun bullets from her skull. Star was an animal in agony and not knowing if she could escape that pain. Thankfully, she was saved. Her life was saved, and she did not have to go through that kind of pain again. Animal cruelty can also involve neglect, such as depriving an animal of water, shelter, food, and necessary medical treatment. Animal fighting, in which animals are trained or forced to fight another in violent confrontations to grave injury or death. Imagine living like that, physically abused, living even though you are starving, and forcefully fighting another to death. Animal cruelty is wrong on countless levels. Morality, compassion, empathy, and humaneness, which contains the word human in the beginning. The lack of humanity is frightening. The fact that a human being can do this to an animal is frightening. The unimaginable pain that an animal has to go through is frightening. Throughout America, there are countless animals that are abused and killed by domestic violence. That number is estimated to be 1 million, according to the Humane Society of the United States. The most common victims in America are dogs, cats, horses, and livestock. To protect animals and prevent further cruelty, there are being laws passed by the government. These laws are put in place to discourage abusers. The Animal Welfare Act was passed in 1996, which requires minimum standards of care and treatment be provided for certain animals bred for commercial sale, used in research, transported commercially, or exhibited to the public. Under the PACT Act, which stands for Preventing Animal Cruelty and Torture, a person can be prosecuted for crushing, burning, drowning, suffocating, or impaling animals. Those convicted would face felony charges, fines, and up to 7 years in prison. In America, it is estimated to be 900 to 2,000 cases per year. Although these laws and punishments are seemingly useless when compared to the amount of animal cruelty still going on each year, these laws are in effect and they're saving animals' lives every single day if they were enforced properly. And it is not just the laws kept in place to help these animals. There are organizations and civilians. ASPCA stands for American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. This organization has been saving lives since 1866. The ASPCA's mission, as stated by Henry Bergh, its founder, in 1866, is to provide effective means for the prevention of cruelty to animals throughout the United States. They have rescued over 47,000 animals, helped 4,756 animals get adopted, and had $12 million get donated to animal welfare organizations. To help, you can donate to ASPCA, you can volunteer, and you can adopt these animals. Helping these animals can provide them with a safe and loving home, away from animal abuse. We share this world with countless animals, and many of them are abused, whether you like it or not. And it is our duty to help them when they are in need. Thank you.
It was a nice presentation and interesting topics. So my question is, who are these people and what is the underlying cause why people do this cruelty to the animals? Is there any study on that, any research?
There actually was a study, but I can tell you a few things that I know, that there are people who just don't like these animals in general and abuse them. And there was also an incident where someone killed an animal just because they got upset at their parents. And these animals are just there for people to lash out at. So when people get upset, they lash out at the animals.
Thank you.
I missed a little bit, I'm sorry, but I found it, it's a very interesting topic. You did a very good job with it. You know, as somebody who used to work, does some work with criminal law, they say that cruelty to animals is a precursor to essentially human violence. Often people who become murderers have started by killing animals. And I think studies show that it's because the animals are vulnerable. They're weak, they're vulnerable, they're easy to prey on. And people who have that streak in them that that they're violent, will start with animals because it's easier than doing it to a human being. So, you know, all the studies on domestic violence and other things, there, as you said, there often is domestic violence against animals. And we do try to pass legislation to assist, you know, in preventing cruelty to animals. So it is a very important topic. It's actually a topic that I find people care about more than almost any other topic. So very, very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Pooja Raghuram, and her topic is conquering cardiovascular disease.
A man named Bill starts a new job leading a large organization. Bill is 45 years old, but this can happen to anyone at any age, really. He has a fairly good health plan and he's mildly overweight, but he does exercise, going outside and jogging. He's very hardworking, but he doesn't always make the right choices in terms of diet. So one day, Bill takes a stress test on a treadmill and he passes it. When doctors look into this further, they find that Bill's cholesterol levels are borderline, but Bill decides that he doesn't want to take any medication for it. Over the next 8 years, Bill takes 4 additional stress tests and he passes all of them. At age 58, he starts having chest pains and he goes to the hospital where the doctors find that Bill has suffered from a heart attack. And I know you may think that this couldn't possibly affect you or the people that you know, but this man in the story is none other than former United States President Bill Clinton. There are 1.2 million heart attacks every year, and 400,000 of them are fatal even before the patient reaches the hospital. Many people are educated first when heart disease first starts to affect them. Don't let that be you. Multiple heart organizations have come to my school trying to convince my classmates and my peers how important it is to take care of your heart. But kids don't listen. And this is because they don't think that heart disease can actually affect them. Again, don't let that be you. Improperly formed chambers, the heart being too weak or too thick, the valves being too narrow or leaking too much, the arteries shutting down, the heart beating too slow or too fast. All of these are different malfunctions that can occur in your heart. And even if one does occur, then that can prove to be deadly, which is why it is so important to take care of your heart. So how do you know how much of a risk you are at of contracting a heart disease? Well, there's a study called the Framingham Heart Study in the city of Framingham, Massachusetts, where researchers look at different residents in the city and see what factors they have that contributed to contracting a heart disease. And they study all the different patterns that they find among these residents and compile them into a list that we now call the Framingham Risk Score Calculator. And this calculator is a test, if you will, that's available online and available to all who wants to see how much of a risk they are at of contracting a heart disease. And so the results come out in a form of a percentage. So if you get less than 10%, you are at a low risk of contracting a heart disease. If you're between 10 to 15%, you're at a moderate risk. And if you're above 15%, well, then you are at a high risk of contracting a heart disease. And as I said, this test is available online and extremely helpful in knowing how much of a risk you're at of contracting a heart disease. So now you have the score. What's next? Well, if you're at a moderate or high risk, you need to take action immediately. Or if you're at a low risk, you need to take protective measures to ensure that you don't contract a heart disease. Let's take another example here. This time, you have a 51-year-old man. Again, he has a leadership role at a large organization and has access to excellent medical care.
He exercises, but he's an occasional smoker and his cholesterol level is a bit above his goal. He has a normal blood pressure and his Framingham risk score is 7% over the next 10 years. So he has a pretty low risk of contracting a heart disease. The doctors decide to hold off on starting him on any medication, but they strongly suggest that he follow a healthy diet and that he quit smoking immediately. And this is again a former president of the United States, Barack Obama. So what can we take from this? Well, first off, don't smoke. And I know this is probably something that you've heard many times before, but it's true and applicable not only to the lungs, but also to your heart. So let's take an instance here. Let's say you had a heart attack. And you'll know this if you have the symptoms of shortness of breath or crushing pain in your chest that goes to your left shoulder or your jaw. So if you have any of those symptoms, you know you have a heart attack. And so let's say you called the ambulance and you got rushed to the hospital and you survive. Well, the doctors in the hospital prescribe you medicine. So your medicinal options are aspirins or statins, and these are to prevent blood clots and to help take care of your cholesterol level. But heart disease isn't something that goes away instantly. Not even these medicines can solve heart disease just like that. And you don't want to stay on medicine for the rest of your life. So there has to be other options, right? Well, there are, and some of them are seemingly simple. First of all, stress reduction is huge and plays a big part in making sure that you can prevent a heart disease or even treat it. Get rid of all of the unnecessary stress in your life, and that will make you at peace and even go easy on your heart. Another thing is keeping a healthy diet. And that's probably hard to do, easier said than done, but keeping a healthy diet is imperative to ensure that you treat your heart or prevent getting a heart disease. So eating a healthy diet includes eating fruits and vegetables and nuts and avoiding eating meat on a regular basis. So I'm not saying to get rid of eating junk food and stop eating it altogether, and that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is maybe keep a routine of eating healthy, but then every once in a while, eat a cheat meal so that not only prevents you from getting a heart disease or treats it, but that goes easier on your heart. And so these are all different habits that you can do to prevent getting heart disease. Not smoking, stress reduction, and keeping a healthy diet. These are all different habits that you can do. And people say that it takes 21 days to form a habit. So if you do all of these things in 21 days, you may not see the effects physically, but you will remember this in the long run. I'm working with the American Heart Association, and they fight every day so that people will have longer lives. But what does that mean? Well, every parent dreams to see their children graduate from high school or even college. What if I were to tell you that you'd be able to see your grandchildren graduate as well? Wouldn't that be incredible? The American Heart Association believes that they can raise awareness about this. And standing here in front of you today, I can tell you that I believe the same. It's never too early to start fighting and conquering cardiovascular disease. As Bill Clinton once said, if you live long enough, you'll make mistakes. But if you learn from them, you'll be a better person. Thank you.
Any questions from the judges?
Well, I have comments. It's a very interesting topic, very common, and all of us should be aware of these problems, and you end up with a nice quotation from a famous person. Thank you.
Thank you.
My comment is I have a question for you. Do you want to be a doctor?
It's a field that I'm interested in, but I'm not really sure that I want to be a doctor when I grow up.
The reason I ask is when you were speaking, your manner, your tone of voice, I could picture you in a white coat speaking to a medical society. I think you would do very well, and that was a very good speech. Good job.
It is.
Any questions from the audience? Okay, then we're going to move on to our next speaker, Sahil Krishna Atluri.
Imagine a boy, about 5 years old. Let's call him Simon. Simon lives in a low-income neighborhood. After a long day of school, Simon does what any normal 5-year-old would do. He rushes outside and he wants to play soccer with his friends. However, this specific day was special because this was the day that Simon declared he would finally score more goals than his best friend Randall. So after a long, tiresome game, Simon did it. He accomplished it. He scored 4 goals while Randall scored a measly 3. So, overcome with joy, Simon sprinted home as fast as he could. But, not to his surprise, no one was meeting him at home. His parents have to work long and tedious shifts just to make ends meet, so they could not afford him a babysitter. So Simon's all alone, only with his thoughts. What do you think is going through his head? Most likely, he feels trapped and alone. And he's thinking, where are the 2 people I love the most? They're almost never around me. These thoughts will plague Simon, and as the years go by, they will develop into anxiety and depression. And then, as more years go by, that anxiety and depression will develop into suicidal thoughts and tendencies. And now, Simon's life is at risk. Simon's parents didn't mean for him to be neglected, but nevertheless, it is still child abuse because Simon's life is now at risk. Many people believe that child abuse isn't as serious as some other issues in the world. But that thought process is dead wrong. Over 2.9 million cases of child abuse are reported in the US. And there are more that go unreported in the rural neighborhoods in the US. Face it, child abuse is a real problem and needs to be dealt with efficiently. However, there's only one solution, and that is to shine a light on it, to make sure that everyone knows child abuse and its true effects. Child abuse is when a parent or a guardian perpetrates an action that puts a child's life at risk. Some subcategories of child abuse include emotional, physical, and sexual. Physical child abuse may seem short-term because injuries heal. However, they cause a lifetime of emotional suffering. To list a few, child abuse can cause anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem issues. All of these 3 effects can cause suicidal thoughts and tendencies. The story I told you before was an example of child negligence. Child negligence is often caused by something indirect, like a parent having a long shift, which is why it is overlooked and considered a subcategory. However, it has even more effects than child abuse. In addition to causing anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem, it can cause dissociation and low social skills. I cannot stress this enough. Over 1,700 kids die of child abuse and child negligence every single year. Remember, that is 1,700 lives cut too short. That is 1,700 lives that could have helped better the world. Many people have to suffer from child abuse in their everyday lives. An example is from an article by the American Psychological Association, depicting a woman who suffers from child abuse. This woman's memories of her child was not filled with abuse. She had a nice and loving family, but wherever there is light, there's also darkness. Some of this woman's most vivid memories of her mother is of her berating her for some simple mistakes. A perfect example is when she was just 5 years old. This woman used to have to go to church. And one day she accidentally misplaced one of her church shoes, a simple mistake that any child would make. However, her mother didn't see it that way. Her mother believed that the woman misplaced the shoe on purpose so she wouldn't have to go to church. So on the car ride to church, the mother berated her child, calling her so many hurtful names. The mother even called her the devil's incarnate. Imagine being called the offspring of something that's supposed to be the true source of chaos and evil. It's unforgiving. And this woman didn't simply escape her abuse when she turned 18. It followed her for the rest of her life. Now she has to take antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills just to have a high enough self-esteem to feel normal. Does any child have to go through this? I've told you all the dangers, I have told you, but I haven't told you any of the signs, which is the most important part, because you can help save a child. But first, I have to go over a common misconception. The parents and guardians that perpetrate child abuse are not evil at heart. They simply have underwent child abuse when they were children, which is why they think it is okay to some extent. But that thought process is dead wrong. Many parents use child abuse as a way to discipline their children by using fear. However, this fear will control them. So when they turn 18, instead of being confident dogs in a sea of cats, they'll be scared cats surrounded by a bunch of confident dogs. They would be so immobilized by fear, they couldn't take one single step. The cons of child abuse is an extensive list, which is why it is so important to see the signs so you can help prevent it. The signs are withdrawal from friends, withdrawal from activities, changes in behavior and moods. All of these signs are so obvious, but they are often overlooked because someone can simply have a bad day. But if these changes are happening constantly, then you need to report them to the proper authorities. It does not matter if your relationship with a child could be at risk, because relationships can be fixed easily. Remember, that child's life is also on the line, and saving someone's life isn't an easy task. All of the information I provide you comes from Justice for Children. Justice for Children is an organization that strives to do one simple thing, and that is to teach. They want to teach as many people as possible about child abuse and the dangers so people can find the signs and stop it. Because they understand the one solution to child abuse is to shine a light on it. I know that many of you may not have a personal connection that could help drive you to stop child abuse, but that doesn't mean you can't still help. You can learn the signs and become more observant, helping a child at risk. You can even donate to these charities that help stop child abuse. I know it is not your job, it is not your duty, but even a little help can go a real long way. No child, no person should ever have to suffer from child abuse. It is simply unacceptable. Justice for Children acknowledges this and tries to solve it, but they're just one organization. It is up to us. We, as a people, have to come together and try to stop child abuse. We need to see the signs. We need to save children at risk and find closures for the parents that suffer from child abuse. Because then, and only then, will we see 1,700 more children roaming the streets and playing in the fields. And then we can see those 2.9 million cases someday drop to zero. Thank you.
Linda?
I think you did a very good job. Certainly, it was a very interesting topic. I think it's possible that one of the things we're going to have to teach people is that it is their responsibility if they think that a child might be in danger, to report it, to deal with it. I mean, that's all part of people feeling responsible for each other. And I know everybody would want to help a child who is being abused. So if people have knowledge of that, I think they do have a responsibility to deal with it. So I think that's a very important message, and I hope you continue to deliver it. Good job.
Yeah, it was also a good presentation. It's structured well. There was a lot of information. But if I compare with earlier presenters, so there was a little bit not so smooth presentation. So there is a room for improvement. As I said, structured well, a lot of good information. Your body language was good, but it seems that you stopped somewhere, some places from one topics to next topics. So just try to improve that. You will be very good at future presentation. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Okay.
Our next speaker is Rain Mysore, and the topic is help, the right decision.
Imagine that you're a child in a small and poor village in India. You don't have a good source of water. You go to a muddy pool with a small faucet leaking out of the ground. This is where you get your water from. You take a bath in that same small pond, muddy and murky, filled with dirt. Then you go inside and you decide to go have your meal. It's a small plate. Why? Because you need to compromise and share with the other 10 people in your small village hut. This small plate is undercooked. You don't have good sources and resources. Then you go to the bathroom. You brush, but with your finger. When you go to bed at night, you sleep on the ground, which is very hard and concrete. This is a situation and everyday lifestyle that so many people all across the globe have to go through every single day. So many people all around the world are in very, very desperate need of our help. 41% of sub-Saharan Africa lives in poverty. 73 million people in India live in poverty. All of those people need our help. The organization I volunteered for, Sewa International, helps with aiding not just in India, but also helping the impoverished and the needy all around the globe in places such as Mexico and Colombia. An example, some people living in slums and very impoverished societies don't even have proper bathrooms to use. What Sewa does, they go provide these people with bathrooms, build the resources that these people struggle and do not receive by birth. Sewa also provides education and an opportunity for these people to make a living. Within Sewa, there's also a Sponsor a Child organization, and this helps in providing what children need all across the globe. An example includes a child in India. He wants to become a pilot and aspires this. He knows what he needs to do, and he has that vision set in his mind. But he does not have the guidance, nor does he have the money. Why? His parents are laborers. They don't have time and effort, time and even money to put in for this child to allow him to set and reach his big goals. So how is this kid going to make a living? Is he just going to be going to the same small school every single day throughout his life? Somebody needs to be there for him to get the correct guidance and make a stepping stone for himself on his path to success. And this is how so many people just like him can become what they want to become. But this isn't a problem in other places all around the globe. But while we may not see it, it's a problem right here in the United States. LeBron James, I'm sure many of you know him. He is one of the best NBA players to ever step foot on the court. Every game he puts his full effort and shows his true athleticism, and he completely just destroys everyone, and he plays so well. But how did LeBron start? He started in a very impoverished section of Akron, Ohio, and he didn't have anything given to him. Now, obviously, he would have had the thing going in his blood where he knew what to do, and he had that line of basketball players, and he had it in his DNA. But that's not the only solution. He needs to be provided with the guidance and he needs to be provided with things that will allow him to become that next step of a player. As a kid, he probably wouldn't even have dreamed of being able to step foot on an NBA basketball court one day, but he does it all the time now. With his motivation and hard work, combined with the guidance given from other people and the resources as he knew others, he turned his family and himself, along with his community, from a impoverished and needy society into one that thrives, as he is one of the best NBA players to play. Nowadays, along with his work on the court, he helps others that were in the same situation as him. He provides them with schools and education so they can succeed and have the same dreams that he was able to have once he was given the right guidance. Another example, Camden, New Jersey has a household median income of $25,000. The township where I'm from and live in, Chesterfield, New Jersey, has a household median income of $153,000. This gap is huge. What we need to do, as many of the privileged townships in New Jersey, we need to help those other cities that are in need. This gap shouldn't be this large. We need to make it smaller so that our society can thrive. These people need our help, and we can't just sit around and watch them suffer. We need to provide that help for them and give them guidance so that they can succeed and make a living. It is our duty as a human society to give these people the same opportunities that we're given by birth. One place that I volunteered with in Seva International is the KKWC camp, a kiddie camp, a summer camp for underprivileged kids in Edison. So there we did their laundry, we did their dishes, we mopped their floors, and we just helped them with running the summer camp. But when we go there, we see the dishes, they're quite dirty. We see the laundry, it has holes in it, and they wear these same clothes every single day. When you see that, you realize what these people are really going through and how they're suffering. When we go there and try and help them out, we're providing them with an opportunity to, rather than focusing on the things that they don't have, such as proper clothing and proper food to eat, they can focus on trying to build their life and focusing on their aspirations and goals. And while we provide this help, they can more easily have a chance and path to succeed. We might be privileged and we might not realize that there's so many people all around the globe and our country that are suffering every single day. But when we see it and we help them, we get a new form of joy. Now, obviously, we'll enjoy our material likings like a new car, a luxury house, some nicer clothing. But another form of joy is when you go and help these people that really need the help. We will have a plenty of money and we can use it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be using it for our needs, but we should also be using it towards helping those who don't have it. We need to provide our privilege and our money that we have so that we can help these people thrive. Another aspect to look at it is these people who are in poverty are also having other conditions that come because of this. Let's say, for example, you're walking in New York City and you might see, it won't be too polluted or anything, but there'll be some litter, and then you'll see some homeless people also just lining up on the street, begging for their lives. Do you want to keep looking out your window every day, seeing people line up the streets? These people are suffering from food problems as they can't get healthy food. They can't have one healthy meal a week and they're having fast food every single meal of the day, even if they even get 3 meals a day. If we should be able to have that ability and we want to put one healthy meal on their plate. Litter also causes, as they have nowhere to go, they have to throw their trash on the side of the street. Drug abuse issues also occur, as they have no proper guidance and they have no privilege at all. So they unfortunately have to rely on unhealthy habits. There's so many people all around the world desperately needing our help. If we continue to sit and watch, we'll see our human society that we're supposed to be supporting each other, we'll just keep seeing it fall down and down. Before it's too late, we need to act and do something about it. We need to help these people that are desperately calling out for our names. These people may not be able to have the same privileges and same things given to them by us that we have for birthright, but they will be able to provide their hard work and show their true potential and what they're made for if we can provide them with some guidance and money, as they really need it. And that is what will allow them to make a living and succeed as they want to in life. Thank you.
Are there any comments from the judges?
Thank you. It was also an inspirational and motivational talk on a very important social issues. I think you made a good job, and thank you.
I think you're a very good public speaker. You keep it kind of moderated, and I think you did a good job. And the topic of just being able to help those in need is an overall good topic. So I think you did a good job with it, and very good, very good.
Thank you.
Since there are no questions from the audience, we'd like to move on to our next speaker, Nithin Palea.
By the way, how many more speakers?
We have five.
About five more.
Okay, I have to make a break. I'll bring some tea.
Sure.
Short break, but you continue, please.
I know you cannot sit for a long time. I know.
Linda is here.
I can stay on for a bit longer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
I want you to picture a good friend of yours. Think of that same friend who got a bad score on a test, perhaps. What would you do? Would you go up to them, start pointing fingers, laugh at them? Of course not. Or would you go there, console him, and tell him that everything is going to be okay? Tell him that it's just one test and that the next one you're going to annihilate. Autistic children feel like this every single day. They're constantly made fun of and are the basis of all insults. In school, if you miss a basketball shot, you're retarded. If you get a B on a test, you're autistic. These negative words are being correlated and associated with autism. And eventually autism is, when you think of autism, it's known as being stupid. But as Albert Einstein has showed us, that's not the case. Albert Einstein had Asperger's syndrome, and that's a high functioning level, a part of the autism spectrum. And yet, he's one of the greatest and most renowned physicists that has ever lived and walked this earth. In order to rectify this, we have to change our perception of autistic children. And we have to stop giving in to society's thoughts and society's opinions. My 11-year-old sister is still trapped inside of a 6-year-old's mind. She has been unable to talk to people, socialize, make friends, and frankly, even grow up. My sister has autism, and she's been combating it and living with it for 8 years of her lifetime. And let me tell you that it's the same thing every single day. Explaining a daily routine of anybody is an arduous one, to say the least. I mean, everybody has a different schedule. Everybody does something different every morning. But for an autistic child, that is not the case. The thing that is the same for every single child's routine is that it's the same thing every single day. And that's down to the minute. Their lives are completely planned out. Imagine that. Having your life planned out for every single day, every single hour, every single minute. That's how an autistic child is every single day. For my sister, at least, after getting up and doing all her morning routines, she goes and does her homework until 11:30. After that, she's rewarded with TV. TV is something that my sister enjoys very dearly. It's something that acts as her positive reinforcement. And it doesn't have to be TV for every single person. It could be 15 minutes of a video game. Or it could even be as simple as an M&M, one M&M that makes autistic children and lets them and drives them to get up every morning and do that work. Because after doing that work, you're rewarded with something. For my sister, it's TV, but it could be something else for anybody. My sister has lived with this condition, and from personal experience, I can tell you that in the morning after doing her homework, it's nothing too difficult. It's a mere single digit addition and subtraction. It's no calculus or anything, and she's 11 years old, might I say. And she's still doing that. And because of this, many people think that she's stupid, but she's not. And the worst part is that she doesn't even know that she has autism. And that's the case for many autistic children. Since she doesn't know that she has autism, many people take advantage of this. They go out and call her stupid and use her as an insult. This has to be changed right now. Because when people use autism as an insult, they can't even defend themselves. If somebody said to you or me that I'm stupid, let's say, at least I can say something about it. I can say, hey, no, I'm not. I could defend myself. Or I can go and attack them and play the offense card. I could do that as well. But how do you do that when you don't even know that you're being insulted? You guys might be thinking that a routine is something so simple. I mean, everybody does it. Like, I get up, I go to school, come back, and it's the same 8 periods a day, same teachers, same faces, and then I eat lunch or a snack or something when I get home, and then probably do a bit of my homework, and then go to a class or two, and then just sleep. Right? It's the consistency, right? But for an autistic child, that's not the case. Everything has to be planned out to the minute. If 6 o'clock you have to finish your homework, then you have to finish your homework by 6 o'clock, not 5:50, not 6:10, 6 o'clock on the dot. Now, how many of you guys have vowed to look like The Rock after quarantine ended? I can tell you that I have. I mean, and in school, I play volleyball, so I naturally want to get a better vertical. And honestly, it's a pretty simple task. I mean, I just get up, probably go for a jog, and then after school, I probably could just work out a bit, and then I go for a jog once again in the night, right? How hard can it be? It's just doing those 3 activities. Probably takes an hour or an hour and a half in total. But let me tell you that I haven't even started that. I did it once and I never carried through with it. For an autistic child, on the other hand, they would be able to do this easily. After enforcing that positive reinforcement, they would be able to do what I just described so easily and every single day, because that positive reinforcement is what's going to allow them to do that activity. See, they're faced with so many challenges and difficulties, yet nobody understands them. Nobody wants to defend them and show them that, and show other people, the quote unquote normal people, that autism is something that you shouldn't be laughing at, and rather you should be helping them and respecting them. According to the CDC, at around 1992, the rates for autism were around 1 in 150 babies. So it's pretty low, I guess. But at the same time, now, in modern day, the rates of autism is a whopping 1 out of 64 children. 1 out of 64 children. The rates are getting so much higher, yet we continue to not respect them and to show and have them as a laughingstock. These numbers aren't meant to scare anybody, but it's to show that autism is a growing issue and it's something that deserves our attention and resources. We can't let it slide. Eden Autism, an organization, can only do so much. It's a nonprofit organization that caters for children from the ages of 3 to 21. And their services allow for autistic children to grow mentally and emotionally, and much more. But they can only do so much. At the end of the day, we have to step in and help them and guide them. We can't shun them and push them out of society, because that's not going to solve any issue. We have to learn to accept them and respect them. Remember the question that I asked you? The answer is that obviously you wouldn't go and laugh at your good friend, but rather you would console them. Autistic children live with that pain every single day. Yet we don't do anything for them. The least that we can do is show them our respect. We have to help them, guide them. Because autistic children deserve more. Thank you.
I missed a few minutes in the beginning, but a later part of your presentation, it was excellent and you made good points. I have a question. Do you know, as you mentioned that it is increasing every, do you know what is the reason, scientific reason why this autism is growing?
Well, actually, I mean, that was just a statistic that the CDC provided, and still there are so many there's so many reasons and so much unknown about this subject. And honestly, they're still conducting studies and everything to find out how autism even comes about. I mean, a lot of people get it are born with it. Some are diagnosed later on. Like for my sister's case, at least, she was diagnosed at the age of 3. So there's so much unknown about this condition and disease that honestly we still are trying to find more research and back the evidence that we have so far, I guess.
Thank you.
I also found it, can you all hear? I'm not sure if something happened here. I found it very interesting. And the thing is, though, I really didn't realize that there was that much sort of shunning and ridiculing autistic kids. Maybe many years ago, but I didn't realize that was still going on.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have more understanding of it now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sad to hear that that is still going on. And I could hear the pain in your voice as a sibling of an autistic person. She may be undergoing this. The interesting thing is, you wonder if she's experiencing it the same way. If somebody ridicules her, does she understand that as ridicule? Does she feel upset about it? Because
yeah, that's
it might be that you're seeing it, but maybe she doesn't realize it in the same way.
I mean, she doesn't realize that people are making fun of her, but that's because she doesn't understand it as well as we would. And that's the worst part, that she can't stand up for herself. So it's our duty and obligation to go there and help them and guide them.
Absolutely. And especially as a brother, you would want to make sure people are not mistreating her. So
yeah,
I think I could hear your pain and, you know, you're upset about the fact that that happens to her. And I think she's well taken care of with you. Good job.
Yeah, I want to add comments. Awareness is also going up. People are knowing that it's not their fault. You know, there are ways to how to accommodate them, how to handle them, and there are some specialized school. And I as far as I know, one of the best school for the autistic children is in New Jersey, in Plainsboro.
Yeah, that's true. We moved here, like our school district, I go to West Windsor, Plainsboro, right? So I go to high school south, and our district is really doing well for autistic children. I mean, before we moved here, Harney, my sister, right? She didn't really talk as much. She barely talked to anybody actually. But now she's able to express her emotions. She's able to express that, let's say that she wanted the TV remote or something, or that she wanted, I guess, a certain food, I guess, something like that. I mean, but she's able to articulate that. And so that shows how our school district is really doing well. And Eden Autism itself is a school district for autistic children.
Yeah, when that school moved in our town, there was opening ceremony. Township committee members, mayors were invited. I'm not sure whether Linda was there or not. But they introduced one of the autistic, not a child, he was a grown up,
Oh.
and he was doing a job. He was trained in such a way that, he's taking care of his own life and he's also earning some money. So that was a success story. And I guess your sister will have better opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very moving speech. Our next speaker is Varshini Ganesh, and her speech is Healthier Teens.
Imagine that there is a teenager smoking right now in your neighborhood. Chances are that the teenager will grow up to become a chain smoker and will end up with all sorts of lung diseases and non-respiratory illnesses. Well, is smoking really worth the risk and the damage it does to your body? Did you know that the cigarettes pose the greatest single threat to public health in the US and worldwide? Would you believe that? Consider these vital statistics. Nearly 40 million US adults still smoke cigarettes, and 4.7 million middle and high school students use at least one tobacco product, including e-cigarettes. Around 1,600 US teenagers smoke their first cigarette. You never know. A teenager in your neighborhood could be smoking a cigarette right now. Don't forget that there are about another 16 million people who live with a serious illness caused by smoking. Not to mention that our country spends over $170 billion on medical care and treatment costs pertaining to smoking-related disease in adults. Well, I come before you to make the case that teen tobacco use is detrimental not only to their health, but the overall health of the nation. My name is Varshini Ganesh. I am a sophomore at the Middlesex County Academy for Allied Health and Biomedical Sciences in Woodbridge, New Jersey. I am a member of the Empower Somerset Youth Advisory Board Committee and Youth Tobacco Action Group Coalition, engaged in initiatives advocating against tobacco use and promoting mental health in teens. Teen smoking is a hazard to life, and it has become a very common problem as evidenced by the statistics. There are currently over 3 million young people under the age of 18 who are current smokers. Symptoms of nicotine addiction tend to occur only weeks or even days after the teens begin to experiment with smoking. According to CDC, 20% of high school students are current smokers. Around 7% of 8th graders are current smokers. And around 90% of smokers start smoking at or before they turn 18. Allow these numbers to sink in for a moment. These numbers are staggering that point to the pervasive problem that continues to trend upwards in the youth. A trend that clearly needs to be reversed. The uptake in teen smoking is further exacerbated by the adoption of flavored little cigars, e-cigarettes, smokeless tobacco, and others. My dad once knew a person who started smoking when he was a teenager and became a chain smoker in his late 20s. He was consumed by the harmful effects of tobacco use in his fight against many diseases and ultimately lost his fight for life by his early 30s. The consequences are severe and unimaginable. This is why teenagers should not smoke. a well-established fact that smoking and tobacco use is perilous to our health. Smoking is found to be one of the causes of damage to nearly every organ system in the body. Why then would teens continue to take to smoking in spite of the damage made to their health? The answers to this question lies in understanding and taking note of some of the key motivational factors involved in teens taking up smoking and tobacco use. First, social and physical environments play a significant role in harnessing these habits. Mass media has a lot to do with this. It is a hard fact that the way the mass media projects the use of tobacco products as a normal activity can sway the minds of the young wanting to try them. Teens are most likely to use these products if they see people their own age try them. In the physical environment, if a parent uses a tobacco product, it is very likely for the teens to be influenced to try them out and eventually get addicted. Second, biological and genetic factors play an important role as well. There's evidence that the teens and youth in general may be sensitive to nicotine and may feel dependent on them far sooner than adults. Inherent genetic factors may also make it difficult for teens to abandon or quit smoking easily. A mother smoking during pregnancy may be a contributing factor as well for a child to become smokers. Mental health is another reason as well. There's scientific evidence which links the relationship between youth smoking, depression, anxiety, and stress that makes teens prone to tobacco use. In addition, lower socioeconomic status, lower income, lower education, poor school performance, low self-esteem, and social media, among other factors, all drive the uptake of tobacco use in teens. Having understood the key factors driving this trend in teens, it is really important to understand the impact of tobacco use on the body. Did you know that tobacco consists of over 4,000 chemicals? Think about it. That alone is very shocking. Nicotine is the most active ingredient among the 4,000 chemicals in tobacco. When inhaled, nicotine reaches the brain within just a few seconds and exerts its influence over the entire body. It is known to act as both a stimulant and a sedative. It increases alertness, improves memory, increases blood pressure, increases breathing rate, and increases heart rate. Overall, it stimulates the central nervous system to cause depression and fatigue, causing the individual to want another cigarette. The health impacts of tobacco use in the short term and long run are well documented. The short-term consequences include both respiratory and non-respiratory illnesses, increased use and addiction to nicotine, and an associated risk of another drug use. Teens' physical fitness suffers due to poor performance and endurance. They may also face shortness of breath, impaired lung function, irritability, and behavioral disorders. Teen smokers are more likely to seek emotional and psychological counseling and are also very likely to indulge in risky behaviors. In the long run, there's an increased risk for developing heart disease, stroke, chronic lung disease, and cancer. Having understood both the drivers leading to tobacco use in teens and the adverse impact it bears on them, the key question shifts to what can be done to reverse this pervasive tobacco epidemic. There continues to be a range of initiatives and movements to stem the tide of tobacco use in teens. I am proud to be part of an organization which serves the local communities around Middlesex County and Somerset County in this effort. We are a group of young individuals who serve as ambassadors to bring about awareness of tobacco use, the adverse impact to an individual's health, both in the short term and the long run, and more importantly, provide and implement resources and educational aids and forums to help teens impacted by tobacco use. We all remain committed and encouraged in our efforts to fight this tobacco epidemic. The uptake of teen tobacco use is alarming as ever, evidenced by the statistics and the influx of other means of tobacco that have flooded the market. This is a serious pandemic that requires attention, awareness, education, tools, funding, and other resources to transform teens and help them turn away from tobacco use. We all have a stake in this fight to overcome this challenge, and we will. Thank you.
I'll start. I think it was very well thought out, and you did a very good job. You didn't hesitate. I mean, you had it all down pat. So all in all, I would give you a good grade for public speaking. Good job.
Thank you.